Today's short epistle contains a compact review of God's history of salvation as Paul could discern by looking back on 15 centuries of Jewish history and his own experience following his dramatic conversion. So I think it would be helpful to examine some of the scriptural passages that Paul certainly had in mind when he wrote these 6 deeply profound verses. About 3,500 years ago, Moses called the people of Israel together to give them a final solemn exhortation before he died. And you'll find that in Deuteronomy chapters 29 and 30. And in that exhortation, Moses renewed the covenant God had originally conveyed to him at Mount Sinai some 40 years earlier. Moses concluded his exhortation as follows: "See, I have set before you today life and good, death and evil. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, that I command you today by loving the Lord your God, by walking in his ways, and by keeping his commandments and his statutes and his rules, then you shall live and multiply, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to take possession of it." That's a wonderful promise. All the people had to do was keep God's commandments, statutes, and rules. But no sooner had Moses confirmed this covenant with the people of Israel than God predicted that they would be unfaithful to it. Speaking to Moses, the Lord said, "Behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers. Then this people will rise and whore after the foreign gods among them in the land that they are entering. And they will forsake me and break my covenant that I have made with them. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them and hide my face from them, and they will be devoured." Armed with this revelation from God, Moses pessimistically told the people, "For I know that after my death you will surely act corruptly and turn aside from the way that I have commanded you. And in the days to come, evil will befall you, because you will do what is evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger through the work of your hands." Sure enough, the history of Israel and the Jewish people in the centuries after Moses' death was one of a constantly repeating cycle of abandoning and then returning to God, mostly abandoning. To be sure, the law was good. As Paul mentions in the epistle, when Moses received the law from God, his face shone so brilliantly that he had to wear a veil when he delivered the law to the people of Israel. Jesus himself said he came to fulfill the law, not to abolish it. Yet something was lacking in the law, and the continual failure of the Jewish people to live up to it led God to declare a new covenant some 800 years after Moses. Speaking through the prophet Jeremiah, God declared, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall each one teach his neighbor and each his brother, saying, 'Know the Lord,' for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more." When Jeremiah said, "The days are coming," his contemporaries might reasonably have believed that the coming of the new covenant was just around the corner. But if nothing else, God is patient. Another 600 years would pass before Jeremiah's prophecy was fulfilled. As the miracle described in today's gospel symbolically illustrates, the Jewish people in Jesus' day remained just as spiritually blind, deaf, and dumb as they had been in the days of Moses and Jeremiah. In the fullness of time, however, the new covenant was finally inaugurated in a way that no one expected. And this pivotal moment in the history of salvation is recalled at every celebration of the Mass. Likewise, after supper, he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink ye all of this, for this is my blood of the New Testament," that is, New Covenant, "which is shed for you and for many for the remission of sins. Do this as oft as ye shall drink it in remembrance of me." Of course, this moment in the Eucharist is more than a mere recollection. It is when wine becomes Christ's blood. It is a representation of Christ's sacrifice, which ushered in the new covenant. Hebrews 9, verse 14 tells us that Christ poured out his blood through the eternal Spirit. So as it turns out, the Holy Spirit is the difference maker between the old and the new covenants. The law, as good and as glorious as it was, lacked the power and the means for the people to keep it. The new covenant, on the other hand, has such power. It is by the Holy Spirit that God fulfilled and continues to fulfill the prophecy he gave to Jeremiah that he would put his law within us and write his law on our hearts. It is by the Holy Spirit that in just a few minutes, the wine on the altar will become Christ's blood. As Paul summarizes in the epistle, it is the Spirit that giveth life. And it is through the Holy Spirit that we today have been called to be able ministers of the New Testament or New Covenant. Every Christian, not just those in holy orders, has this calling and this obligation. God's history of salvation is now being worked out by the Holy Spirit acting through you and me. What an awesome privilege, responsibility, and joy. That is why at the Eucharist we represent not just Christ's sacrifice, the beginning of the new covenant, but also our sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving. Today's collect reminds us that God is always more ready to hear than we to pray, and that he is always ready to give us those good things which we are not worthy to ask. Nothing could be more pleasing to God than for us to ask him to write his law ever more indelibly in our hearts, so that we may become ever more able ministers of the new covenant.